Are we, you and I, Mitch, overhyping this secondary? A question in the mailbag next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, where right now new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins.
Hello, and welcome to a Friday mailbag episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I am Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone is with me. We have a huge amount of questions to get to today. Thank you all so much for all of your submissions. We encourage you to ask us questions when you send us mailbag items. That is very helpful, allowing us to get through. The comments are appreciated. Questions are appreciated even more. So let's get started. Anything we need to mention at the top, Connor?
I don't think so, other than if you guys keep ask more and more mailbag questions, because then we'll have to actually start filtering them out and maybe reading them before the show, or maybe you like it when we just go in cold on these. So
it's pretty cold. I mean, I've read some of them. I've kind of read them because I cut and pasted them from the email, lockedonneb@gmail.com, or a few from YouTube. We got a couple on Twitter this week. They're coming at us from every direction.
It's good.
Let's start with Patrick. Does the, quote, experienced secondary, end quote, narrative overshadows last year's below-average pass defense and height deficiency? The pass defense was in the bottom half of just about every category in the Big Ten. Or is that unfair due to last year's opponents having to throw to move the ball?
Well, I think there's a little bit of that. And I think Nebraska's style of defense will be theoretically a little bit more in your face, a little bit more aggressive this year. I mean, over the last 2 years, they were kind of okay with, letting teams take the checkdowns and stuff over the middle and things like that. So I think those guys can cover. And I think the exciting part for me about the secondary this year is not only do you have most of those, if not all those guys back, you have grown depth and experience behind them. That's why I like the group so much this year.
Yeah, it is true that Nebraska ranked in the bottom half of the Big Ten in many passing categories. Yards allowed, Huskers were 11th. Completion percentage last year, Nebraska was 15th. Touchdown passes against, 17th. Interceptions, they were 9th. Yards per attempt, attempts per game, yards per attempt, there we go, 16th. So it wasn't great statistically. I think the big difference with the secondary this year is that Nebraska does have the ability to play more man-to-man defense because they're deeper at the cornerback position. After Tommy Hill went down with injury early in the season last year, Nebraska was not as deep at corner and had players playing out of position. Marquise Buford, Malcolm Hartzog are better at the safety spot, and that's where you're going to see them this year. So us hyping up the secondary, it is more about the experience and the depth that Nebraska has there. And if somebody's not getting the job done, then Addison Williams, he's got the ability to go put somebody else in, a younger player perhaps, who is going to give Nebraska a chance as well. So
yep.
I will stand by what we said about the secondary. All right, let's go to Stu in Wanaki, Wisconsin. I consulted ChatGPT to get win-loss projections. This is great. There's an 85% chance of the special teams improving, 65% chance of improvement for the offense, and only 40% for the defense. I won't bore you with the math, but I asked AI for analysis based on the confluence of these probabilities in different scenarios. If only the special teams improves, Nebraska goes 8-4. If special teams and offense improves, if only the special teams 7-5. If special teams and the offense 8-4. If Nebraska improves in all three areas, 9-3 with the caveat we could go 10-2 with some breaks. Question: based on this analysis, does it change how bullish you are about the season? P.S. I rewatched the Pinstripe Bowl, and I've forgotten how many blunders we made and how lucky we were to win. Warmly from deep in Vermin country.
Nice. Wanakee or Wanaki, Wisconsin. I am very bad at Wisconsin town pronunciations. So hopefully
it's
we
one
get
of those two.
Yeah, get a clarification on that one. I don't think ChatGPT is going to change my thoughts on how I feel about this team, but that's a simple way to look at it. Oftentimes it's more complicated than just that. But I do think, a simple way to look at it is if Nebraska's offense dramatically improves, the defense stays the same, and the special teams dramatically improve, that should be a lot better of a football team. And Nebraska's schedule is maybe a touch easier than it was a year ago. So yeah, I think that's where most of the conventional wisdom comes from on this team. I don't know exactly where I'm going to land on a win total yet. But we
don't have to have it yet.
Yeah.
The rule is that right when the season begins. I'll have a win total on August 28th.
Yeah. It'll be in the neighborhood of 8 though, maybe a neighbor of 8 somewhere, or
I think
8
that's accurate.
itself. Yeah.
Yeah. My outlook on the team, my bullishness on the team is not going to change based on, I love Stu's work though. Good work. Let's get more AI consulting done through the season to see how those adjustments, those projections are adjusted. Let's go to Ben in Huntsville, Alabama. I've been thinking about the case of the missing opponent head coach scheduled for week 4. What are the limits on Sharon Moore of Michigan? Assuming he coaches at Oklahoma in week 2, that's the plan. Mm-hmm. Is he allowed to do any coaching for the following 2 weeks? If so, it seems like him being absent for game prep is a bigger deal than the actual game. Does a win over a coachless Michigan in September carry weight for Nebraska late in the season if it's in the broader playoff discussion? If Matt Rule were slapped with a similar suspension, hold on, we'll get to all the answers.
Interesting.
Who do you think would be the acting head coach for that game? Phil Snow or Dana Holgerson? Unrelated, but in response to Riley Van Poppel's statement this week that the D-line is using external doubts as motivation, I have resolved to doubt the D-line even more. This is a lot of great stuff from Ben.
Yeah, really good. Okay, so let's go in order here. So Sharon Moore can't coach in the weeks he's suspended. In the week leading up to
if he's suspended. We still don't even know.
Correct. Correct.
That's the theory that he's going to be suspended for weeks 3 and 4 against Central Michigan. I think it's Central. It's a directional Michigan school, and then Nebraska.
Because they start with New Mexico and then they go to Oklahoma. So yeah, you're right. The whole week. If the Michigan imposed suspension, which is aimed to appease the NCAA, holds, then that will be the case. If Michigan says you don't have to suspend him at all, or he's done time already, or whatever it is, then that's a whole nother road.
They agree with Tony Petitti that he's done enough.
Yeah, he's paid. He's done his time. But he can't coach the whole week. So I do think that makes a difference. I don't think you'll probably be talking about it as it pertains to the playoff. Maybe if they're really in a situation.
Couldn't you see that? Couldn't you see
where they're splitting hairs at the end?
Yeah, couldn't you see? I assume Troy Dannon would have to recuse himself from the room during that moment, or he has no hair, but he would pull all of the hair that he doesn't have out of his head if they started downgrading Nebraska because it won against a coachless Michigan team in week 4. So it seems like something that you could hear the playoff committee say on one of those nights. Are they Tuesday nights? Tuesday nights on TV where the chair gets on and Reese Davis talks to him and he says, well, Nebraska had a great looking win in week 4 against Michigan, but Sharon Moore was suspended that entire week. So we take that into consideration.
They were coaching against Biff Poggi, so it doesn't count. Yes,
actual person.
It's an actual person. That is literally the guy who might be the acting coach when they come to Lincoln. So that's an exciting conversation that we'll probably cross that bridge when we get there. Yeah. Who would be the head coach for Nebraska if Matt Rule is suspended? I would lean Phil Snow. I think
so, just because Dana has to coach the offense. Dana's got to call the plays. Dana, you don't want to disrupt him from. I mean, he has the most head coaching experience, undeniably, among the assistants. But I think Snow's right up the alley for that role. And we don't think that Matt Rule is going to get suspended in 2025.
No, I don't think so either. Let's go to Jacob, who leaves a comment on YouTube. If Nebraska exceeds expectations this year, what will be the reasons why? Likewise, if Nebraska struggles, what will be the reasons we say the season was a disappointment at the end of the year?
If Nebraska exceeds expectations, I think that it made a big jump on special teams and it won the turnover margin by a significant number, and it got great quarterback play.
Yeah, I think
that's boring, but that's football.
When you sort of math it out, like I think most people agree that the offense is going to be dramatically improved this year for a variety of different reasons. So I'm just kind of counting on that. I think this whole defense having a chip on their shoulder thing, if they rise to the occasion and Nebraska yet again has a top 25 type of defense, a stalwart on the defensive side of the ball, you'll say, well, that carried them. Obviously, the offense got a lot better. That was expected. The expectations for the defense are all over the place. So if they're solid again, they're gonna. That's once again very broad strokes, but yeah.
And if Nebraska is a disappointment at the end of the year, what are we going to be talking about? Injuries. The defense didn't hold up its end of the deal in the first year post Tony White. We'll be talking about how we didn't appreciate Tony White enough, and looking back on it, Connor, don't you just think that having 3 new coordinators, one on every phase of of every level, was just a little bit too much to handle in the transition in 2025.
Interesting. Yeah. I can hear that already in the collective media.
We should have seen it coming.
I would say that they lost a bunch of close games. They never found a way to get over the hump in close games. And that's still a process that's ongoing going into 26.
The mental hurdle. All right, let's finish the first segment with this one from Noel in Clarksville, Tennessee. With all the talk about the running back room this year, I started thinking about what might have been Nebraska's best room ever. I picked what I thought might be the most impressive and put them in chronological order. I'd be curious what you guys think, focused on 1980 and after, not including quarterbacks. So I won't go through all of this, but he's got 82 on here with Rozier, Craig, and Jeff Smith. He's got 94, Phillips, Schlesinger, Benning, 95, Phillips, Green, Benning, Childs. Didn't mention Jay Sims, but he's in that group. 97 with the Green and Makovica, Karel Buckhalter. 2010, Roy Halou, Rex Burkhead. 2014, Amir Abdullah, and some other guys. He didn't mention 2012 when you had Rex Burkhead and Amir Abdullah at the same time. I like that one. It's not my number one. Yeah. But I like that one as far as recent years go. I mean, Roy and Rex in 2010 was good. But 95 undeniably, like that was the most dominant team that Nebraska ever had. And you had Tommy Frazier in that group too. I know we're not taking into account quarterbacks. Nebraska, no exaggeration, had 5 I-backs that year who would have started on most power conference teams.
Seems pretty easy. So Amir's freshman year in 2011, I guess he had 42 carries that year. I remember him playing less running back than that, but that was it was Rex, and then obviously Taylor Martinez was a huge runner, but then they also brought in freshmen by the name of Amir Abdullah, Braylon Hurd, and Aaron Green. And it was
the three-headed backs.
We were wondering who was going to win, and ultimately it was Amir who won. The other 2 left.
He was the least heralded of the 3. I mean, really. But
he was kick returning.
Then Aaron Green went on to an excellent career at TCU. He was the most heralded. He was like a borderline 5-star coming out of Texas.
Yeah, the answer is 95.
All right,
thanks.
Yep, the answer is 95. Okay, let's take a break, and we'll come back and address many more questions, including we got something coming to us from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Looking forward to going there after this.
But first, a word from our friends with the FanDuel Sportsbook, where summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're about baseball, under the lights, golf, and the green, high-stakes soccer action, it's all out there. FanDuel's got the best way to make every game more exciting. So why not get in on a little bit of the action? Because you're a sports fan and you're already following it Anyway, so you can track your favorite matchups. Yes, but there's so many options for you in the FanDuel Sportsbook. You can live bet in-game, same-game parlay, season-long bets. You got to start thinking about those for football season coming up. Maybe you got a Super Bowl winner at the end of the year. Who knows? But it's an option for you on the FanDuel Sportsbook. So if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or head to FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, welcome back. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you. We are going to go a little bit longer today because we got some more questions and we want to meet your demand of questions. So we got you. We got you covered. Let's go right back to Jason in Evansburg, Pennsylvania. He asks, so with all the media sessions with players and coaches happening, who has been your favorite player and coach that you've interviewed? Now, is this a this year question or is this an all-timer?
I think it's this year. Well, the way he writes it seems like he's talking about all time. And man, that's tough. That's really tough to go all time. I mean, you start thinking you have to think about the personalities among the players who have come through. You know, I'm going to just give some love to Adrian Martinez because Adrian was like such a great guy in those interviews and like always showed up. And even until like the very end when he was just like getting crapped on by his own program, he like was more professional than the professionals. So
he probably when he committed to Nebraska in late 2017, he went on every radio show that ever existed. And as you guys know, there's a lot of them. He would have come on this podcast, you know,
he probably would have hosted this podcast if we had asked him.
Hosted this podcast. Yeah. Adrian is a great pick. I'll go with and I've only been around covering it day to day since 2015. So, you know, I have a few different coaching staffs under my belt at this point, but man, you know who I really like talking to because he was super honest. Had a hard time here. Mark Banker. Mark Banker was Mike Riley's defensive coordinator, and he just said stuff. I specifically remember a few times with him there was like, oh, you probably should not have said that, but he did, and you know, he was good. He was a pretty good defensive coordinator here, but it soured at the end of 2016 for him before he was let go.
Yeah, I wasn't around him much because I was not doing a ton of Nebraska in those 2 seasons while I was with ESPN. I mean, I made a few appearances here and there, but didn't ever. I know that like some of my former coworkers from the World Herald really liked Mark Banker. Like would go to him every week just to kind of, okay, how's it really going? Like, how are what's it like? What's really happening with the team right now?
Like, I loved his. I love the guy who came after him because he was insane, but he wasn't quite as personable. You know, he was a little bit more like, what, I have to do this media, and then he would hold Bob Diaco. He would hold up the lapel microphone.
The strain, you got to feel the strain.
Yeah.
He was
so
a strange man. Still is a strange man. I will say, and this is recency bias, but we're going to get a dose of it next week. As far as coaches go, Mike Eckler is one of a kind, and he's probably not the most like if I really had to make a list, and I go back way too far. Charlie McBride was fantastic to talk to as a coach. There have been lots of them. I mean, so many of them that some guys that maintain relationships with after who I actually enjoyed talking to after their careers as opposed to during their time at Nebraska. Like I put Bill Bush in that category, and he's become a somewhat of a member of the media, hosting a radio show, but he's fantastic to talk to. And you got some of that. You definitely got some of that when he coached, but once he wasn't on the payroll, you know, there was more leeway and more honesty that happened. And, but Eck is one of a kind, and looking forward to talking to him next
We
week.
get any love for Mario Verduzco here? What an interesting cat, as he would say.
Yeah.
He'd call everybody a cat.
What do you talk about? Like the 4 pillars of learning, or the
biomechanics and all this stuff. I mean, chances are, if you were around during that time and you were active on Twitter, he probably sent you a DM, a long DM about quarterback play and all that stuff. I mean, he was really a great guy, but there was a lot going on
you know who else was one of a kind in that with that label when you talk about Eckler and Verduzco is Phil Elmation. So he was part of the Callahan staff, and the guy coached at a new school every year, Coach Elmo, and just had a super gruff but like lovable way about him. And you could kind of see maybe why he moved around so much, because I'm not going to say like he rubbed people the wrong way. That's not how it is, but just you got
a bit of a grading style. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. All right. Let's continue.
Let's go to Ann Arbor, Michigan. Hello. We got Cam checking in from beautiful Ann Arbor, Michigan. The foliage is about to get really good in Ann Arbor.
Getting questions from other Big Ten towns.
Because we've seen all the stats concerning the history of Nebraska's ranked wins or lack thereof over the last 20 plus years. And then he writes, I swear that Fox employs a guy whose full-time job it is to generate new and humiliating stats and figures on Nebraska football for their broadcasts each week. That's pretty funny. We've obviously spent a lot of time.
Stats on their own.
Yeah. I wonder what the job title is for that. We've obviously spent a lot of time this offseason talking about win totals, but for a fan base that's starved for meaningful wins over the course of 5 coaching regimes, how would you evaluate a season that features 1 or more significant rank wins or upsets, but flat lines in the win column, like a 6 or 7 win season, but wins over Penn State and Iowa? Appreciate the work from you both, GBR.
That means that some things went wrong, really, really wrong, in games that are going to frustrate the heck out of you.
Yeah, makes it worse, arguably.
Yeah, I don't know that that's going to make people happy, Cam. I think it could be worse. It could be worse, because if you're losing to Michigan State and Maryland but beating Penn State and Iowa, like, how do you walk out of that season saying you feel good? I think that would just frustrate fans and make them wonder, like, what do we even do? Where do we even go from here? Like, what direction is up, kind of thing.
It makes it worse, because then you look back on the season and you say, well, we played that well against Penn State. We had a great top 10 or top 5 win or something like that, but we couldn't figure out how to beat, Minnesota or something like that. That would make it pretty frustrating. Let's go to Virginia Beach. Here we go. Brian. He says, hey, Mitch and Connor, thanks for constantly providing all the great news and Husker content. Please stick with me on this one. Oh, I love this preface. Is it just me, or has the thought ever crossed your mind on former Huskers who didn't quite reach their potential in Lincoln, but take that next step in the NFL? Yes, to answer that question quickly. So what's happening, he says. Do you think, A, I'm overanalyzing this, wouldn't be the first time. B, the elevated competition the NFL pushes players to truly max out, especially if they subconsciously felt secure in their college roster spot. Or C, maybe a mix of both, which, let's be honest, was my go-to answer in high school.
I mean, this is like the Nick Gates question.
It's a lot of guys.
I'm always amazed when people remind me that, like, Carl Nix was one of the highest paid offensive linemen in the NFL for a period of time.
Long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it could be a lot of things. I mean, sometimes the players are injured in their college time, and, maybe they're just not mature enough to handle that well. You got a guy like Randy Gregory, who is getting in trouble in college. Like, he's partaking in marijuana usage. I suppose we could just say that now.
A lot.
Yes. Yeah. Got him in trouble in the NFL too.
Yeah.
But, it made it difficult for him to stay on the field and be eligible in college when he was failing drug tests. So, it's not one answer. I think there are times where, like, the elevated NFL competition, yes, does push players to max out, and they get to a certain age and, yep, they're able to perform at their peak. You may have somebody in Heinrich Haarberg on this team right now who goes on to the NFL and does bigger things at that level than he does at Nebraska because he spent the first 4 years of his Nebraska career playing quarterback.
Yeah, I would say that it's not a blanket thing, but if I were to try to throw a blanket over all of it, because it's a real thing. There's a bunch of guys who that's been the case for. Nebraska just has had so much turnover in the last 15 years that it just felt like they were never doing the same thing over and over again. It just felt like there wasn't really a base to jump off from. So when new players come into the program, and there's a lot expected of them, and they go into it right away. I mean, how many times have we seen it where guys Adrian Martinez, a guy we've talked about, he was maybe at his best the first, 4-6 games he played in his career. That was maybe as comfortable as he ever looked. And then so much weight fell on his shoulders. And so I'm not surprised to see him have some success post Nebraska. But, it's a lot of different things, and guys react differently in different situations.
All right, let's do one more before this break here. I'll get to this from Adam in Wichita. Continue to love the show, guys. You're a great first listen every day. Tai Robinson felt like a special player for Nebraska last season. He came back for a fifth year and was noticeable disruptor in every game and got mentioned by opposing coaches before and after and was highlighted during the game by broadcasters. Even played fullback on special short yardage situations, which brought more attention and a cool factor. But with all that, he was a third-team all-conference selection by the coaches in the media and a ho-hum Saturday fourth-round pick in the draft. I wouldn't say it was ho-hum. Like, I think he's going to have an NFL career with the Eagles. So my question is the ceiling for postseason recognition and draft status for Nebraska's roster, what is the ceiling this year? And if not, which players have the most potential to do better? I think what he's asking is Tai Robinson the ceiling for Nebraska this year and beyond? No.
It's always, it's just on how many games you win. If you don't win you don't win many games and you're not a super duper standout player, it's just going to be hard to get put on those lists, especially with the size of the league now. People forget that it's 18 teams. So if Nebraska rips off a 9-3 and they get good play, you're going to see more guys start to pop on that list. I think it's pretty simple there.
And at the defensive line, that's part of it too, because of the position that he played. And you look at the defensive linemen in the Big Ten last year, like Abdul Carter from Penn State, JT Tuamola from Ohio State, Mason Graham from Michigan, like Josiah Stewart from Michigan. They were great. You had a couple of Oregon guys, Kenneth Grant from Michigan. Yeah. There were players who were first-team All-Americans, multiple in the Big Ten on the defensive line. So being a third-team All-Big Ten as a defensive lineman last year is very good. Let's go take a break. We'll be back. Oh, we've got our map. We've got to debut the international and domestic versions of the map. It's new, and Nathan, the map maker, has a question for us. That's coming up next. All right, welcome back. Locked On Nebraska podcast. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer. We're going to be with you a little bit longer than usual. We will try to jam a bunch of questions into this final segment. We start with the map maker, Nathan, in Colwich, Kansas. Good time to bring this up. All right, here we go. Here's the domestic version, the U.S. version of the map, updated. Thank you, Nathan. And here we go. We've never seen this before. Not a video. Whoa. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it there. It's Taiwan over there on the right, not Hong Kong. I'm sorry. I don't even know if they can get the show in Hong Kong. If they can, we don't have listeners there from what I know. If we do, hello. But you see the spots in Western Europe. You can see Mexico City. There's Alaska up there. Great job, Nathan. We appreciate it very much. Okay. Nathan says, my question for this week's mailbag is about our defensive sets and formations. I may need some help in understanding the 3-3 stack that we are running. I know Nebraska will sub different packages. Talking about Hartzog, Buford, Singleton, if they could all share the field, as we've mentioned. How does that work personnel-wise? He said, does Singleton play the jack? No. Hartzog, the rover. In that case, where do McCullough and McGahee fit in? So, short version, Nathan says, explain this defense to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you the ability to have more freedom, especially in the defensive secondary. I mean, it's what it is. You're putting the 3-3-5 on the field, so you have 5 defensive backs, but it's also possible that you turn one of those defensive backs into another linebacker who could cover a tight end. It's all about what your personnel is compared to the other team and what they're throwing out there. So yeah, there's a lot of different options, but just like the simple version is it's just in an effort to give Nebraska more flexibility really everywhere. I mean, on the defensive side, because their personnel it's different all across the board.
The thing they're going to say over and over and already have, what you'll hear from Phil Snow, what you hear from John Butler, Matt Rule, they're going to try to get their best 11 defenders on the field. And they mean it. Like other coordinators have said that this team, this scheme, this specific version of the 3-3-5 is going to have the flexibility to do that. That's ideally what they want. As far as the jack is a big linebacker. That's the guy outside who gets a hand on the ground. That will not, I mean, it would be a wild scheme if you had one of those safeties at the jack. The guys you mentioned there, McCullough and McGahee, yeah, they're big. They're defensive linemen. That's where Jordan Ochoa, the emerging redshirt freshman, plays. Maverick Noonan plays that spot. Hartzog, Buford, and Singleton, like there's 2 safety spots and a rover on the back of the defense. So they can all be on the field at the same time. And you know, you could, in theory, be in a scheme where they're all out there, and maybe you have Donovan Jones out there as well, because you bring Singleton down and have him like at inside linebacker. I don't think that's going to be regular, but like if you're going up against 5 wide from, Nebraska plays Oklahoma in a bowl game and Air Raid is out there, then sure, they can do that with the way this defense is set up.
Yeah, exactly. It's just about the flexibility. Okay, so let's go to Luis in Lincoln. Is question. I have a comment/question that probably won't go over well with most fans. Can we please get rid of the "Come a Runnin' Boys" song, the Corn Huskers song by the Killigans at the end of the first quarter? Too corny and brings my hype level down. I'm all about getting pumped up. This song just doesn't do it for me, and probably doesn't do much for the younger crowd. Ooh, Luis, I think it does a little for the younger crowd. I tend to think that the younger people like it.
It's a participation thing.
Yeah.
If things are going well and Nebraska had a good drive or a defensive stop at the end of the first quarter and there's a good vibe in the stadium and they play that song and everybody starts singing the chorus, then it's good. But if it's quiet in the stadium and that song's playing, yeah, you need participation. I think, from my perspective, like it's set up. It's like Sweet Caroline in a baseball stadium. Like it doesn't work that well if the people don't sing along.
Yeah, let's go to the second quarter. It's 13-0 Michigan. Nebraska has 4 yards of offense, and here comes the Cornhusker. You're not going to enjoy it very much. It's not going to be all that fun. Here's John in Lincoln. I personally, by the way, I don't want to get rid of it. I don't. It's okay. It's fine. I don't love it. It's
like
not
it.
for me, but don't get rid of it.
I like it. I'm fine with it. You can get rid of the Tunnel Walk song, but that's a different story, different topic.
That's right. We got to bring that take back. Let's go to John in Lincoln. I personally have always looked at Tom Osborne and Bo Pelini winning 9 or more games in every season they coached as the benchmark for where we should strive to get back to after firing Bo. Do you think that Nebraska winning no fewer than 9 is doable in the current landscape of college football and in the Big Ten, or do I need to adjust my expectations and set the floor to 7 wins and just hope for 9 every few seasons? It would be great to get back to 9 or bust, but I don't want to set myself up for disappointment. And to be clear, I'm not expecting to start the 9-win streak this season necessarily, but maybe next year or the year after.
Don't adjust your expectations too much. It's good to have high expectations, and I don't think 7 is the place that Nebraska should expect from a team that's. I mean, look, Matt Rule's doing. He's getting mic'd up and walking through the facility and showing everybody Starbucks and the training table. That's the newest one today. Like, they're advertising this place, they're promoting this place as the best in the country. So if you mix that with 7 wins as your base expectation, something's not something's not working there. Like they don't have 7 wins as a base expectation at Iowa or Wisconsin. So I don't think it should be at Nebraska. Like if you want to strive to have 9 wins and go from there, then I think that's just fine.
I will say the college football landscape has gotten more difficult around. There's very few walkovers in the conference anymore. And really, as you look around, everybody's got money, everybody invests it. So it's harder.
You're not going to meet it every year. You're not going to meet 9 wins every year. Just saying, let it be the expectation.
If you're asking, should Nebraska be a program that wins that many games, 8 or 9 games or something like that? Yeah, I think they belong there. And I think that's a good place to start. Dominic asks, what's up, guys? I feel like we can never get a win at or against Minnesota for the past 5 years. It just seems like we're never able to beat them, and I'm not sure why. Do you think we'll be able to break that streak this year, even with the tough scheduling that week?
Yeah, that's the week that Nebraska goes to Maryland, and they don't know the game time yet for that East Coast trip, but unless it's an 11 a.m. start, it's going to make for a slower Sunday, and then the Minnesota game, of course, is a Friday night on Fox, back on the road. So that is a tough one. And Matt Rule mentioned that when he talked about not just that, but Nebraska goes to Penn State on the Saturday before Black Friday. So has another Saturday, Friday. At least the second half of that one is at home. So with Minnesota, I mean, PJ Fleck is just running a program that's like that has achieved this level. Like, talk about baseline for their program. Their baseline is like just enough above where Nebraska's been sitting, the car has been idling at a certain place, and Minnesota's above that. You know, even in the 2020 year when the Gophers had half of a roster, they were just good enough to beat Nebraska. Like consistency throughout the program, like understanding who they are, what their identity is. It's just been good enough to beat Nebraska, and Nebraska has to get to a place where, you know, it's realizing its higher end potential, and then it can start winning games against the Gophers.
It's no coincidence in my mind, Mitch, that Nebraska has really struggled beating those 2 specific programs that you just mentioned, Iowa and Minnesota, because those 2 specifically are incredibly consistent, and they know exactly how to beat teams and what their formula is to win. And Nebraska's had a really difficult time, you know, throwing them off their game. You know what Minnesota's going to do. You know what Iowa's going to do. It's just, can you stop it?
That's why Nebraska had such a struggle with Wisconsin, and then last year blew them out because Wisconsin forgot who it was last year.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Let's go to Shane. As a regular first listen of my day, I have not noticed the lip smacking. LOL. However, do you remember Osborne's habit of lip smacking every 20 seconds during interviews? Go back and watch videos if you don't.
Sorry, I just smacked my lips
super
obnoxiously.
I've never noticed that, to be honest with you, with Tom Osborne.
Yeah. It wasn't something that I remember. To go back and look at some clips. No. I'm thinking about Matt Rule in the Colorado game. I'm thinking about Matt. What was Rule doing in the Colorado game a couple years ago?
Oh yeah, he was doing
he was licking his lips.
He's licking his lips.
Why did that only happen for one game? Was it the dry mountain air?
Maybe.
You get chapped lips when you go up into the Rockies, right?
Yeah, it gets
That's
dry.
What it was. Somebody forgot to prepare him for that.
So I'm gonna go back and grind the tape after this and watch some Osborne interviews. But the question from Shane was, why did the football team go away from the producing the Chasing 3 videos? It would seem that the HBO Hard Knocks knockoff would be good for recruiting.
Yeah. Rule talked at Big Ten Media Days about how they produced an entire Chasing 3, like for the whole season last year, like a documentary style movie. And they just decided not to release it because he didn't want everybody talking about 2024 when they had moved on to 2025. And he said to the media there at the little side podium, what would all you guys be focused on if we had released a video of the 24 season right as we were getting into spring practice? They are like moving away from some of this behind the scenes stuff. And it's moving more toward, give the head coach a microphone and just let him walk around the facility and riff about whatever. Like that's their new behind the scenes, the stuff where they go into the locker room and into the dorm rooms and into the meeting rooms and all that, like into players' homes and cars. That's better. That's way better, way more insightful. But those days appear to be over. Rule did that at the beginning, and it was something that he felt was beneficial, and he's moved on from that.
Here's T-Race. If Nebraska really worse than these programs who are ranked higher than Nebraska in the top 35 on ESPN, who could make the college football playoff? Kansas, SMU, UNLV, Tulane, Boise State. There are others, but these are painful. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's about the conference they play in. The last four, I'm sorry, SMU's in the ACC, but the others that you mentioned there are G5 teams, and you're looking at that and saying, all right, these are the teams that have a shot to be the best in the G5, and they're guaranteed a spot. SMU made it last year. You saw the path to get there from the ACC, and then Kansas, like, could they be the SMU or the Arizona State of 2025? Like, if be clear, if these teams were in the Big Ten or the SEC, they would not be on that list.
Let's race through a few more. We're almost to the end of this thing here. We're going a little bit long today. Scott in Windsor, Ontario. If Dylan Raiola had transferred to another Big Ten school this past offseason, which schools would be QB1 at on opening?
Which would he be? Yeah, where would he be QB1?
Okay. Well, he'd only be QB1 at one of them, but Miami, I think I got that was my Texas A&M was maybe the other one that I had kind of heard.
He's asking. Sorry, I may have messed up the transfer of this question from the email file. He's asking if Dylan had transferred to another Big Ten school, at what Big Ten school could he have earned the QB1 job on opening weekend?
Sorry, I misunderstood.
So,
I always heard those schools were throwing a bunch of money at him, but
yeah. So, I mean, you have to like suspend disbelief here and say, like, because Dylan Raiola was not transferring to Penn State. I mean, they weren't taking him.
Sure. Yeah. It's a good question.
He wouldn't start there. Let's just say, okay, where could Dylan Raiola be the starting quarterback right now? At what Big Ten schools? Like, I think he probably could have transferred to Wisconsin, Purdue.
Definitely.
On the Northwestern, Minnesota.
Definitely.
I think he could have transferred to
Iowa.
Maryland.
I mean, it's almost
Rutgers,
everyone.
Iowa.
It's almost everybody except for, like Penn State and
not Ohio State.
Michigan
had their freshmen coming in. I don't think. I mean, would you beat the guy out? Maybe, but that's where Michigan's putting their future. Washington probably not. They like the guy that they have. Oregon, I don't know, or maybe Oregon, but they have Dante Moore from UCLA. UCLA, I mean, look, they got Nico. USC possibly. It's about half to slightly more than half. It's hard to say though, because the situations are. I mean, some of those schools may have been like previously committed to a quarterback who is not better than Dylan Raiola, but they would have not chosen to take a transfer.
Yeah, I would lean more than half. Right. It changes their situations dramatically. DG Mosker on YouTube. Why didn't Nebraska make Heinrich Harberg a power running back instead of a tight end? Can you answer that one quickly?
He's too tall. You think? 6'5"? Who plays running back?
I don't know. You could get him to do some stuff. Like, I don't think he's a running back. I don't think that's sort of the problem with Harberg. He's kind of nothing, like he's sort of positionless, but like he's a really, really, sorry if that sounded harsh. Like, he's a really great athlete, but he's what is he? What's he going to be?
Our running backs are not that tall. I mean, yeah, you get a Derrick Henry and he's huge, and Harberg's bigger than him, at least taller than him. It's hard to squeeze through those holes that they open up. They're not open for very long. Also, he's a huge target. If you're handing the ball to that guy 20 times a game, he's going to get destroyed. Like,
he's good with the ball in his hands, though. I think that's the point. Like, so, but I don't think he would be like a full-time
traditional running back. Nah,
no,
it's not. It's not. He's not suited for that.
GG and Las Cruces. Now that week 2 of camp is concluding, and we've heard from so many players and coaches with BTN camp coverage, Husker press conferences, and the Saturday practice, do the Huskers have enough dogs in terms of mentality in the position groups, or is it just the narrative talking lines?
They're getting more dogs. That's the feeling from the team. That's the objective here in creating those kind of players. We talked at length early this week about that 2024 incoming the class of freshmen last year. It seems to be that class is full of those kind of players, from Raiola to Shavers, McGahee, Barney, and others, Donovan Jones. You can go down the line. Maybe even some of the players who redshirted last year will fit into that category. So that's what their aim is. And when you have freshmen who do big things in the program and then turn into leaders as sophomores, it's not long before you're talking about them as being like the alpha males in the program. So I do think that class, that Dylan Raiola class, and no surprise, it's connected to the quarterback, the 5-star quarterback. I do think that's the class that has the best chance of any at Nebraska in a long, long time to take them to levels that they've not achieved in the Big Ten.
Yeah, the simple answer is we'll find out. I think the mentality part is a question that's yet to be answered. Let's go to Vincent.
This is the longest show we've ever done, so thanks for sticking with us. If you're still here.
Everyone. Vincent Napa, he says, I've heard many theories on how Nebraska can break the spell of losing 1-score games. Here's a novel idea. Don't be in them. I realize that occasionally you have to win 1-score games, but they are avoidable more often than not. Accidents don't happen. Accidents are caused, he says.
Okay. You're playing in the Big Ten, one of the best leagues, if not the best league in the country. You're going to find yourself in some close games. Like Nebraska's going to be in close games. Like that's just the reality of it today. This is not 1997. So, but yeah, I mean, there's some games that Nebraska's played, and Matt Rule referenced this, that you're in a game that is down to the last possession and you could be up 14 points in the fourth quarter at the end if some things had gone differently. So, they don't need to be in as many close games as they have over the last 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, the goal is to widen the gap, and maybe they've done that. But they're going to be in about half their games are going to be 1-score games, so buckle up. Sam in Cody, Wyoming has asked this question a couple times, but after the leak, quote unquote, of the all black uniforms, do we think that's legit, and do we like them? So this was last week. Somebody went on like deepshields.com and saw that there was a black Husker uniform for sale.
That's where it leaked?
Yeah, or something. Yeah, that's where I saw it.
But I thought it was like maybe on one of the practice videos.
No, Nebraska's had those black uniforms they've had them in the equipment room for a couple of years now, just waiting to bust them out. So I think they're the same. And I like them, for the record. They could have done a whole hell of a lot worse. They've definitely done a whole hell of a lot worse before. I'm excited to see if they bust them out this year. Maybe there's an opportunity to. I don't know if they will or not. Rule seems lukewarm on it. I'll say that.
I think it'd be okay. It's fine if they want to go all black uniforms for a game. I got no issue with that. I'm not feeling real strong one way or the other about alternate uniforms, as I've said before.
Yeah. Put it in the tunnel. No, you care about the tunnel walk, because this is your I don't care category.
Yeah, it's the things I don't care about. Serving beer at Haymarket Park. Yeah.
Greg in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. How many yards per catch must the Huskers average to end up 9-3 or 10-2? Whoa.
So I'm crunching some numbers here, and I'm looking at the teams in the country. Well, he had some multiple choice on that. Did he not?
Yeah. He said 8-10, 12-15, or 18-20.
So the question is to get into the in 9-3 or 10-2. You better be in that like 10-12 range. I think I just crunched numbers on like the top 2 passing yardage teams in the country. Like somewhere they keep statistics on yards per completion. It's not an official NCAA stat. They do yards per attempt. And yards per attempt, of course, your national leader is going to be in like the 9 to 10 range, but yards per completion, it's quite a bit higher. 12-15, 12 is good. 15 is very, very good. So I think if Nebraska could get like in the 10 to 12 range, maybe on the higher end of that, then it could definitely be in position to win 9 or 10 games.
Nebraska's 2 top receivers last year, Isaiah Nair, Jamal Banks, were both about 13 and a half last year.
Yeah.
So,
well,
I mean, to go up a little bit.
Yep.
That'd be my thought. And then one more from Bill in Minden, Nevada. Is there anybody in the 2025 roster that looks like the next Levante David?
Well, are you talking about Levante David from his NFL career? Because if that's the case, then it's impossible to know and would be irresponsible to even project that. And the same goes for Levante David as a Nebraska player. Like he was a bona fide All-American, great, could have won the Butkus type of dude. I mean, I don't look at anyone. Now, somebody may develop into that, and you look at the young linebackers, and there's promise there for sure. Talked about Shavers and McGahee. I think Dawson Merritt is a guy who could have a great career at Nebraska. But to say after 1 year, or in the case of Merritt, like 6 months in the program, couple months of being healthy, that like they're on track to be becoming one of the greatest linebackers in Nebraska history, it's premature. We don't know.
When I think about Levante, I think about like just instinctual, just freaks, in that category. Always were on top of the ball. I do think Vincent Shavers got a little bit of that to him. I don't know what he's going to develop into, but what Levante had was so natural. And he was such a great athlete, but he was always where the ball was, not necessarily where he needed to be, but where the ball was.
But most of the time when he went somewhere he didn't need to be, he made the play. If you go off your assignment, you better make the play. And he was very, very good at that. And he remains very good at that. He's still playing, right? He's not retired. I mean, unless it happened in like the last week, he's still out there. So greatest, he's one of the greatest to do it, period. At any level. So it's hard to say like that guy's on the roster.
Okay. That's it. A longest episode ever. But you guys earned this one. Nice job. Great questions this week. Keep them coming throughout the preseason and into the season. Appreciate you making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Find it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.